Welcome everybody to General Committee for Wednesday, October 30th. I hope everyone's had a great week. We're calling the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. For the consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of General Committee may ask that an item be held to discuss it further. If an item is not held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at the General Committee meeting, and the recommended motions will proceed to the next City Council meeting for consideration. The reports of reference advisory or special committees, which I believe have some of these motions through them. So we'll stop at the actual reports on the way to that. 5.1 is a report of the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee from October 9th. Councillor Harvey, would you like to give an update?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. On Wednesday, October the 9th, Finance and Responsible Governance Committee met. All 4 members of committee, along with 7 other members of council, were present, along with 13 members of city staff. On that day, we received 2 different presentations. The first one was from Tom Ewells and Tim Sample in regards to the Barrie Sports Hall of Fame. And they spoke about the future of the Sports Hall of Fame and some of their financial struggles in continuing on. And we also had a second presentation from the Barrie Public Library in regards to key performance indicators from the Chief Executive Officer, Lauren Jessup. Many questions were asked and a really good discussion came. As a result of the 2 presentations, no motions came forward. They were both received, and that is the end of my report.
Thank you so much for the update, Councillor Harvey. I'm now going to go to the report from the Community Safety Committee for October 9th. Councillor Morales, could you please provide an update for the meeting as well?
At 4 p.m. I called it into session at 4 or 2 p.m., so I clearly was late. Everybody on the committee was present, a lot of staff, a lot of councillors on the committee, and basically it centered around the presentation concerning the Bright Futures Barrie program, and the presentation was done by Mr. Dan Bell, Director of Rec and Culture, and obviously the subject, a number of subjects were covered in regarding to the programming, identifying root causes, the timelines of the program, the funding, eligible criteria for further funding, etc. So anybody interested, take a look at the meeting. It ended at 4:39, so nice and condensed, but still enough detail that you can get some updates as to the presentation. And that was the only item on that meeting date.
Thank you, Councillor Morales, for the update on the meeting, and I hope you are feeling better. Thanks for joining us from home this evening. I'm going to go to Councillor Harris for the report of the Affordability Committee meeting dated October 23rd, 2024.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. We had all members of committee and members of council present, and we received the Heritage Barrie Committee minutes and had 2 items that you'll see obviously on the agenda tonight. One was historical street sign for Short Street, and the other poppies, which commemorate veterans on 4 different streets in Barrie, which we look forward to, and it's very timely given where we are on the calendar. And we had 1 public meeting, and interestingly enough, we had no members of the community speak at the meeting or online. But we did obviously have a presentation from Ms. Pollock and Mr. Duhamel regarding the application, and Mr. Butler from our Planning and Development Services from the city. So there were questions asked, insightful questions by Councillor Morales were asked, and there were no other comments received, and we conveniently and quickly adjourned at 6:18, so a very efficient meeting for that evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to ask a quick question. If you can't answer, I'm going to ask staff to jump in for us. With regards to the naming of the adding of the poppies on the streets that are named after veterans, is everything in here reliable that these are in fact veterans?
I would defer to maybe the Heritage Barrie Committee members or staff.
Mr. Chair, Councillor Rittman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In fact, those names come from one of the people on our committee, Craig, and he's a expert in this area. So that's where those names come from. So I'm quite sure that they're correct. And there seems to have been in the past poppies were going to be put on some of these street signs, but then there was some misspelling of names, and over time those kind of things happen. But they were intended to be for these to recognize these people. So that's why we're bringing it back at this point.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask somebody to hold this and move an amendment that would remove the word investigate and just direct staff to put poppies on the signs. I don't know why we need to report back on whether to put a poppy on a sign or not. So if we can ask who will hold that, Councilor Riepma? Perfect. Perfect. So it sounds like Councillor Morales wanted it held as well, so that's great. We're going to move into the staff reports, DEV 042-24, the zoning bylaw amendment application, 515 Big Bay Point Road. I haven't received the 3 sets of minutes. That would be the minutes for the Finance and Responsible Government Committee, the Community Safety Committee from October 9th, as well as the Afforability Committee from the 23rd. Are there any issues with receiving those? Then they're all received. And we're going to go on to DEV 0. Here. Okay. AF1 is, you go to Toronto for one day, you come back, it just doesn't work. AF1, historical street sign, Short Street. That's approved, and then Councilor Riepma's held AF2. For the third time, DEV 042-24, zoning bylaw amendment application for 515 Big Bay Point Road in Ward 9. That's approved on consent. DEV 044-24, pedestrian crossing analysis, Toronto and Park Street. It's approved on consent. DEV 045-24, Livingston Street West and Longman Drive pedestrian crossover, Ward 4. It's approved on consent. FIN 016-24, development charges appeal settlement. It's approved on consent. Facility allocation and affiliation policy update. That's approved on consent. So the only item we have held for the General Committee meeting this evening is AF2, which was held by Councillor Riepma. So Councillor Riepma, if you could put the motion on the floor, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will put the motion on the floor as printed, and I would be happy to accept your proposed amendment as a friendly and just move it along and get it done.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And I think there's another amendment coming, which I haven't seen. So, Councillor Morales, would you like to speak to this now, or do you want to wait until this vote's complete?
I'll speak to it now, just because if I think it might be a merging of the two, or at the very least a nuanced discussion. So if you let me know if I have the floor.
Yeah, the floor is yours, sir. Okay,
thank you. So I will just point to members of council to their email that was sent by the clerk at 2:03 p.m. And Mayor Nuttall, I'll read it out loud too in case you don't have quick access to it. And this might be similar to your comment or somewhat compatible. So what I was thinking was the amendment essentially would be the following. So replace the word operations with the development services department. Investigate. So it would be that staff in the development services department investigate the feasibility and costs and report back to the Heritage Barrie Committee concerning the following: replacement of Poppy Street signs, and then adding in including but not limited to the following streets due to damage or incorrect spelling of names. And then it would be Maley Drive and Coleman Drive, Higgin Court, and Ruffett Drive. And then section B, this I would be adding this one, adding a poppy to street signs in remembrance of veterans that currently do not have them. So I can speak to that. I can speak to the wording of an amendment I haven't tabled yet, if you will allow me, Mayor Nuttall.
So you can speak to the, I missed one portion of that. You can speak.
I technically didn't table the amendment just because I'm trying to be collaborative with this one, and I think it might, or if it's easier for me to just table the amendment. So whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I think that's completely up to you if you want to amend the amendment. I think that there's, I'll let the debate happen, but if you'd like to move this as an amendment to the amendment, that's probably the easiest way to just move forward with it.
Okay, perfect. And could you clarify very quickly the comment that you had made that, in your opinion, you saw no need for this to go back to the Heritage Committee or back to or the memo or for the memo to occur? I just want to clarify before I make my comments.
Yeah, what I was trying to get to was not having a staff report back on whether we put a poppy on the street signs for veterans. And I think that you kind of deal with that in a more comprehensive way in paragraph B. And so if you're asking me where I've landed on this, it is to proceed with the 4 without a feasibility study and without a costing of what it costs to put up a street sign. Our team will know what that is or isn't. And then if you want to have the rest of the names come back that required to have a poppy added to them in honor of our veterans, I can see that for sure, so we know how many and we know where and they get clearly delineated. But I don't think I need a report back to determine whether I would like our team to proceed with this, and I don't think that it's going to break the bank, so the cost is, to me, is just negligible.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was asking you. Okay, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So the intent of this, first I want to start off by commending the Heritage Committee on this and the individual. I know it's a team effort, but also the individual Councillor Reed identified. I touched base with Councillor Harris last week. That was the reason I kind of put up my hand a little bit late. I wasn't trying to say negative things. I was trying to go out of my way to say positive things. This is work that is super important. It's important we get it right, whether it's spelling or recognition, and it's work that sometimes gets put, we'll get to it. So the fact that the Heritage Committee did this is really commendable. The one thing the purpose of my amendment, as you said, Mayor Nuttall, in a more comprehensive way, is I don't believe this is the only the ones that are missing. Not so much from a spelling perspective, but I did a bit of research, would have been over 8 months ago. I kind of got interested in the subject matter, and I'm not saying I'm an expert matter whatsoever, but I used the Legion National kind of website and different resources there, and I, on my own, identified 5 previously unrecognized Barrie veterans, and then in addition to those 5, another 16 additional veterans that I just put them on a separate list. I'm not the one who makes this call, but just may not be compatible as road names because it already exists in a similar spelling or some other nuance, but would make good names for candidates for non-road municipal parks, such as parkettes and other municipal infrastructure, as per the naming policy. So basically what I'm saying is on some research that I, in my personal capacity, did, there is possibly up to 21 other names of previously people not on the list, and names that don't have a poppy that we have out in the city. I think one of the most recognizable ones, just because it's a main street a lot of people travel, is Livingston. Livingston was a very young veteran. So basically, in a more comprehensive manner, the purpose of my amendment is to, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's not leave anybody behind, and let's empower staff to do that. So based on my quick deliberation with you, Mayor Nuttall, I think I am totally agreeable altering the wording of that first section of my amendment, so it doesn't have to go back to staff or anything like that. So it's pretty straightforward. Go replace these identified by these 5. Go get it done, and then come back with a list of any that were missed because of cost. For example, Livingston, it's lots of addresses, lots of lists, possibly lots of signage. So at the very least, I think a memo would be prudent in that one.
Can I offer to you, Councillor, as a friendly, you don't have to accept it, by the way, but if you would, that staff initiate the replacement of Poppy Street signs, including but not limited to the following streets due to damage or incorrect spelling of names, going through those that were identified by Heritage Committee, and then B, new paragraph B or paragraph 2, depending on what we'd like to do, adding a Poppy to street signs in remembrance of veterans that currently do not have them, and that staff report back with the list. Is that
yes,
amenable?
that is amenable. I'll take that as a friendly.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Harvey, then I have Councillor Corser.
Great, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Through you to the mover of the motion, I definitely support this motion 110%. Just for a point of clarity, because I'm not sure with the way the motion is worded, and it's just strictly to do with the spelling. So obviously, Mailey right now is spelled M-A-I-L-E-Y. Is your motion also correcting the spelling of it so it's accurate to the veteran's name of M-A-L-E-Y?
Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. That is correct. My intent is exactly the Heritage Committee. I'm so sorry. Was that directed at Councillor Rietmar or myself?
Yeah,
Mayor Nuttall, I can't tell.
So the original mover of the motion is Councillor Rietma. The amendment was Councillor Morales. I believe it was Councillor Rietma, Councillor Morales that it was being asked to, because that's where I saw Councillor Harvey aiming his question.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll try to answer. The intention is not to change the street sign itself, but just to add a Poppy to it. As happens often in history, we're not, the spelling of names gets changed somewhat, and sometimes it's not entirely clear as to how that name should have been spelt in the first place. And of course, what we don't want to do is to have people living on that street have to go and change their driver's license and all the rest of it. So we'll leave the spelling as it is on the street sign, but add a Poppy to it.
Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Follow up through you to staff. I don't know if it's Ms. Banfield that would be directed at this or not, because I know she was the one that we were dealing with the latest renaming of Harley Drive and how quickly that occurred. Now, with a simple change of just one letter, obviously it doesn't change postal codes. It won't affect the actual mailing piece of any letters and stuff to those addresses. Have staff explored whether or not it would cause any 911 issues if this motion also directed to change the spelling to reflect the true spellings of the veterans' names? And the reason for this is I believe if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And if that's how their names were spelt, then that should be our focus, is to getting this right on the first go around.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey, staff can definitely take that away and take a look at how many streets, like how many addresses are on each street, and we can do an evaluation. We would always check with the circuit of that we do when we look at street addressing and street naming. So we would definitely take a look at that before we'd make any changes. So I don't have that kind of information for each one of these scenarios right now, but we would absolutely look at that before we'd make any decisions.
Councillor, can I ask that we hold these as two separate items in the sense that there's, I think, separate issues going on. One is the actual Poppy recognition, and the other one is the, as you said, the appropriate spelling of the name. And the reason that I'm going to ask that is because we don't know tonight what the situation is on that street. For instance, are there, when it was built, did they on each and every one of the houses put 38 Mailey, and then you've got 38 houses that we have to change the actual name or spelling of the name on the front of the home. Is it possible that we ask staff to go back and in a separate piece to deal with that? Like a 3?
Yeah, no, Mayor Nuttall, I do agree with you. Like, I would have expected that that type of thing would have been explored prior to it coming here, but I gather it hasn't, because obviously, especially because Remembrance Day is only a few weeks away, I think it would be very appropriate, quick and easy for staff to have the poppies attached to the existing signs, and that we can deal with the spelling changes if applicable and appropriate at a future date. So I definitely do agree with you. I'll leave it for now, and then if I can throw in an extra amendment after we deal with this amendment, because if we start getting too many amendments to the amendments, it just gets too confusing.
Well, I'm relying on you to remember that we're already on the Second Amendment. That's our local Second Amendment. Councillor Corser, you're next.
I am with Councillor Harvey that I believe that this is a really important thing to get right. And I think that I am going to leave my comments until after the amendments have been moved and ask staff some questions afterwards.
Sure, no problem. Any other comments or questions on the amendment as it stands? And I'm taking a very, I guess, preliminary guess at what this reads as, Madam Clerk, unless you already have something. That staff,
Oh, here, I can help you out. That staff in the Development Services Department replace the poppy signs on the following streets. And with the list of streets, and with the B, that that street signs that currently do not have poppies for veterans, that poppies be added, essentially. That's the motion.
okay, so that's the amendment that is the amendment to the amendment, sorry. Councillor Rietma.
Just a question on the amendment. Would it be the intent to have that list come to Heritage Barrie? Because that seems to me the proper, that's where some of the expertise lies.
Through you, Mayor
I'll
Nuttall,
go to
sorry.
the mover of the amendment. Are you okay if the report back is to Heritage Committee where this is originated from?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. After hearing Councillor Harvey's comments about just timing, I don't presume we'll make it. Listen, if we make it by Remembrance Day, that's great. But so to answer the question, no. However, Ms. Cook, are we able to, and I know any member of the public can access on Legislar at any time, but are we able to proactively send that list to the Heritage Committee once staff are done doing their process? So essentially giving them that proactive, here's the email, because I would love to hear their comments and feedback. I just don't want to have another touch point that slows down the pipeline. So I guess a question to Ms. Cook, are we able to assign, when staff is concluded, are we able to proactively just send it to Heritage Committee quickly? Because I do want to engage them and respect the work they do, but I don't want another touch point.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, if we're speaking to the amendment with the new list, we can send it as part of the agenda. We can send it in advance of a meeting, but really the committee can't consider or approve anything outside of a meeting setting.
Okay, perfect. Based on that information, Mayor Nuttall, I'll fortify my sentiment. No, I don't want it to go to Heritage first because they have to meet and they have scheduled meetings, and then those, when they meet, there's reports of the reference of the not reference of the committee, advisory committee that has to go up the food chain, and I think that'll just unnecessarily slow it down. But as long as they have the information, by the time it gets to general committee and then council, plus the week or so before general committee, Heritage Committee should have about 2.5 to 3 weeks of influence and ability to have a conversation with members of council.
Okay, so that's what's currently on the floor, and the mover has expressed what the goal is there. Are there any other questions or comments on the amendment to the amendment? Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Chair Nuttall. Just one comment, because we do want to make sure we get it right, and I don't know if it's realistic anyways to think that we can get poppies up before Remembrance Day on a full list, because I think it might be much more extensive. But if we can prioritize the 4 that have been, I think, the early part of that motion, I think it would be prudent to make sure before any action is taken that it does go to Heritage and the Legion, just for confirmation and validation.
So are you referring to the list?
The longer list
The
of
longer
additional
list.
veterans. Yeah, for other naming that might be considered for poppies to be added. So I believe the amendment is looking at 2 parts. One is the 4 streets that were identified as missing poppies.
Yeah, Counselor, I totally get the, but I'm in the mayor's chair. I can't move an amendment. So if you're looking for an amendment that has it be circulated directly to the Legion and to Heritage Barrie, you can do that from your seat,
And
but I can't.
okay, so I'll amend that I whether or not I think it's in the amendment, I think Heritage would do it anyways through the contact, but I'll formalize it. So I would say that I would want to see this at minimum shared with Heritage and the Legion 147. Mhm. Yeah.
I think that I'm now confused with the amendments to the amendments. I just wanted point of clarity, so we are going to go through with the first amendment, and then we're going to deal with Councillor Kungal's amendment after that, correct?
So there was a motion put on the floor by Councilor Riepma, of which there was an amendment. Then that amendment was amended by Councilor Morales. So we have 2 amendments to vote on prior to getting to the main motion. Councilor Kungal was to put a 3rd amendment, which includes circulation to Heritage and the Legion, but that's going to wait until after we vote on the first 2.
Okay, because my question is that the information in front of me only has 4 names, and I'm hearing that there are more than 4 names on this list. So I don't know if voting on this would exclude other names that I am not aware of. So does the maybe through you, if I may, to Councillor Riepma, is there a longer list of names that are not included in this motion that need to be investigated?
Mr. Mayor, in response, I think that answer should come from Councillor Morales. He has done some investigation on his own and come up with what I thought was 16 more names. And I think that Heritage Barrie and the Legion and staff would all be quite happy to vet that list and just to make sure that it's correct and then move forward with that.
Okay, just for a point of process or clarity, does that affect this motion?
It's already covered in this motion.
All right.
So the
Okay.
amendment had the 2 paragraphs, one with the initial 4 and a second paragraph that asked for a subsequent list of anything that's missing in the city of Barrie to be brought forward. So
All right.
we could choose to wait on the 4 or proceed with the 4 and then look at whatever the greater list is that Councilor Morales, or maybe there's other members of the community who have this type of expertise that would be able to bring forward.
That was because if there's 4 on here, then there's a potential for more. So, yep, okay, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments on the Councilor Nixon?
It's a hot potato.
It's a hot potato, you're right. That's more of a comment. I understand that the 2 that had the spelling mistakes, Maley and Hagen Court, currently do not have poppies on them. I think to put poppies on with the wrong spelling, and I know spelling changes over the years and whatnot, but if I was a descendant of someone and I went, oh, geez, they didn't spell my name wrong, or they spelled it, differently or whatever. So more of a comment or a suggestion. We have many new streets coming over the next few years. probably hundreds. And we currently have many streets in this town that have very similar names. Mapleton, Mapleview, Parkside. We got them all over the place that are very similar. So my suggestion would be to leave these two alone, name two new streets, only instead of Mailey Drive, Mailay, it's Mailey Court, and put a poppy on it. And then it's spelled correctly, and it's a new street, and it's all good. But that's, as I say, that's just more of a comment, and I don't want to create a new amendment, but for what it's worth.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Nixon. The street names go through a rigorous process and review. So just to arbitrarily maybe add the Mealy and the Higgins Court, they would still have to go through that same review process, like through the 911, through fire and everything like that. So that would be like a separate motion to ask staff to, it'd be another amendment, essentially, to ask staff to add those to the street name listing.
Okay, thank you. So are you suggesting that I make another amendment?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall.
Or once, okay.
In speaking with Ms. Banfield, given that the street names are very similar in nature, they likely would not be approved.
Okay.
Councillor Corser.
I don't know if I'm like throwing like gas on this bonfire, but I know that in my ward, I have a Vine Street, I believe it is, and a Vine Crescent Court. So, and they're very, very, very close to each other. And I know that they were named a very long time ago. But I do know that there has been issues with fire and ambulance and pizza delivery and Ubers and everything else in between with having those two streets close together named differently. So I don't know if that would be any impact, just a kind of a kudos to staff why they would not want to have that issue, just from my experience.
If you live on Vine Court, you might just get a pizza you didn't ask for. That's perfect. Okay, we're going to vote on this. If there's further amendments after we've taken on these two items, then we'll deal with them then and move forward. So those in favor of the amendment moved by Councillor Morales that we've just discussed. Okay, it is unanimous. I see Councillor Morales there. It's unanimous. And now that is the amendment. That is essentially the verbiage of Councillor Riepma's amendment. So we're going to vote again. All those in favor? Carries. We're back to the main motion. Are there any amendments to the main motion? I have Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. To add a section C, that staff conduct a review of the spelling of Melee Drive and Higgin Court to reflect the accurate spelling of the honored veterans and to report back to Heritage Barrie Committee. And I can speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just with the discussion that we had, and obviously, I think it's important to have the accurate spelling. And I do agree with Councillor Nixon's remarks that not every family member might appreciate the fact that they're being honored, especially when you've got the wrong spelling associated with it. And that's where I think, getting it right is important to honor them appropriately. So that's why I think it's important that staff conduct a review to see whether or not it is appropriate and falls within the guidelines to not have a negative impact to 911 services, to be able to have the appropriate spellings. And just on a quick search myself, I don't see that it would be because neither of the correct spellings have streets that are anywhere close to us at all.
So that's moved by Councillor Harvey to look back, and I believe you said report back to the Heritage Committee. Okay, so that's a paragraph 3. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, no. I fully understand the intent. If you're going to do something, do it right. But I think, closing the gate after the horses are run is an issue. So, agreeing with Councillor Nixon, if it's not the correct spelling of a veteran, then maybe we shouldn't consider the poppy. But I just don't know if we can go to the homeowners and ask them to endure costs. As if you look on Google Earth, there's a lot of the homes in these streets that have got precast on their garage. They've went out and got artwork, like their addresses and stuff. So if they change the street name, that sign would no longer be the street they live on. So the homeowner would have to endure that cost on changing it. So it's a little bit of a dilemma. I understand the point behind it, but I don't know if I can go to a homeowner in these streets and ask them to endure the cost of the misspelling of a name. This is the street they bought on. They chose to do this on their home. So I'll listen to other conversations, but I know it's a study back, and if it was that every street going forward was vetted prior to a poppy being placed, I could support that. But to change this, I think the only discussion should be if these are not the veterans' proper names, then they're just names of streets, and we don't put a poppy to honor something that doesn't exist.
Just before we go to Councillor Kungl, I'm just going to ask a couple of things. First of all, do we know on Higgins and Maley how many homes there are? Six on Maley? And 18 on Higgins? Or Higgin at the moment?
Sorry, vice versa.
Vice versa?
Yeah.
Okay.
18 is,
Are these both your ward?
yes.
And these,
All four of these are mine.
okay, and so there's 24 homes altogether between the two? Okay. My second question is just to confirm, if they're all in the same neighborhood, which I think they are, I take it that this was a theme for this neighborhood. Is that correct? Sorry, what I was asking is was veterans' names a theme for this neighborhood? It seems they're all around each other, so.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Nuttall, to members of committee. Staff have done no work on this. This is a reference coming out of a committee. So we would need to go back and get you some additional information.
So perhaps between this week and next week, we can find out whether this was a subdivision that was specifically naming streets after veterans and let us know, because I don't think that's a very difficult thing to find out. And I'm sorry, I usually wait till the end. I'm just gonna jump in. If there's 24 homes, folks, that we have to cover the cost of to get this right, I really don't love that. However, I don't know what the stories are of these veterans. They might have come home, they might not have come home. And I find it very difficult to get through the end of this conversation. I completely hear Deputy Mayor Thompson going to a homeowner and saying to them, you know, you're either going to have the wrong name on your home now that you've invested in, or you're going to have to pay for that to be changed, when they might have actually just purchased this upgrade when they bought the home itself. Is a lot to ask of an individual. So on these two specific, I think where we have the namings incorrectly, I would like to see through this Amendment 3, something report back on what the cost would be to actually bring that up. And I wouldn't usually be okay with it. And the Deputy Mayor always makes sure that I remember the cost of this change as we talked earlier. And this is not the first time it's happened. It's not the second time it's happened. It'll happen again, but at some point I would like to know what the actual cost is and how we can incorporate that if it's for our veterans. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to just, because we have a double meeting tonight and whatever happens at general will be approved, so we won't be able to get that information. Understanding, we're 12 days out from a Remembrance Day. I just think if we're gonna do it right, that this should be deferred or deferred back to staff to fulfill the information that's seeked, to get it right with all the stuff that you just mentioned. Because if the cost was covered, I would accept that. Like I said, I couldn't go to a resident and, not understanding their circumstances or whatever, at no fault of theirs. So I think because there's a really good dialogue going on here, and I think we need to get this right for all the points you made. These could be people who give the ultimate sacrifice, and it would be disrespectful. So I'm fully supportive of that, but I just think that we should give staff the opportunity. And
Councillor Kungle has a comment, and then I'm going to ask somebody to move one more amendment.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I appreciate the deferral. I think that's great. I mean, let's not rush something with Remembrance Day, and let's get it right. On that, I'm supportive of Councillor Harvey's amendment in general on getting more information, because I know we're talking about potentially cost and impact, and I don't think we want to see that, but maybe, although we're not seeing it, it's highly likely, but if one of those two names comes back to say, well, a naming convention for a court or a parkade or something at the end of that extension might be reasonable, then I would rather make sure that we're not putting a poppy on the two roads that are misspelled. Because I would also say, if until we know is the intention that we can't do anything else, and then we need to be clear that the intention was, unfortunately, it's a misspelling of a veteran's name, the poppy goes. If we can find a different solution, the poppy goes on the appropriate solution, and I just wouldn't want to insult a family or see the additional removal of a poppy if we're not clear yet. So the timing of those two, I think, with a deferral, maybe is when we want to pause and not do maybe as soon as the other two might be possible.
Thank you, Councillor. And I think that what I was going to ask is something very similar, which is that the two that are misspelled be added under the paragraph 3, and that the two that are properly spelled we get going with, and we don't hold them up while we figure out the what to do with the other two. Councillor Harris, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Manette. I wasn't going to weigh in, but I think you just hit on something that's important. And there's more than street signs and poppies to recognize veterans. And I'm just, chance to credit Mr. Craig Fries, who's a member of Heritage Barrie, a historian with a particular interest in military heritage for our community. And one thing he's done, which is again a way to recognize our veterans, is the flags that we enjoy on Lakeshore. So it could be that if this historical error on the spelling, if it was meant to be a veteran celebration in this area, creates too much challenge. What about making sure that those veterans that the naming isn't right could have a sign, a flag on our lakeshore? So thank you.
Ms. James Reed, is that something that I believe your department's overseeing, those recognitions?
Yes, Mayor Nuttall, we do, and I was just pulling up our website. We also have honoring our Canadian Armed Forces on our webpage, where we do show veterans and the stories that have been provided to us through the Heritage Barrie Committee are on that website as well.
Is there somebody who would move the two names to under paragraph 3 as part of the report back? That's Councillor Harris. So that's another amendment that's an amendment to the amendment to remove Maley and Higgin and place them under paragraph 3 as part of the report back to the Heritage Committee. Are there any questions and comments with regards to those two? I think we've talked about it in advance. So all those in favor? It carries. Now on the amendment itself, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Wait. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I was going to add something, it's all good.
Well, okay, so then all those in favor? It carries. We're back on the main motion. Would you like to speak to it now, Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, I'll just touch base on it briefly. On a quick Google search, I can see there is at least a couple houses that would be impacted exactly as Deputy Mayor Thompson had said. That style of sign typically isn't too expensive, so it'd be interesting to know exactly how many houses, because unfortunately on Melee, I guess the Google car has never driven down it, so I couldn't, other than catching the first couple of houses at the end, I couldn't see what other homes were there, but there was 2 on Higgin Court that would be impacted. So it'd be interesting to see what the true numbers are, potentially what the costs are, and also some feedback from residents to see, because obviously we don't want to get into a big thing with residents too in enforcing this correction and change. And the other thing that I would like to also bring up again, I know we've brought it up once before, especially now that we're talking about veterans' names, is those future subdivisions that will be in Ward 7 off of Veterans Drive. I think it would be most appropriate to really concentrate on any future list of veterans' names to get them onto street names as quick as we can. And I don't think it'd be any more fitting than to have it off of Veterans Drive myself.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris?
Yeah, I'll be real fast. I just want to recognize Councilor Morales for taking the time to investigate and finding these names. So thank you, Councilor Morales. I'll be supportive.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions before we vote on the main motion now? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? And it carries. That completes the items that were held for this evening. And we're going to move past reports of officers and items for discussion, past information items to inquiries. Are there any inquiries of our public servants this evening? I'm seeing none. We're going to move to announcements. Deputy Mayor, you got one for us? I have none. You have none. Councillor Kungl?
Thank you. I've got a couple. I'll be brief, but I will speak a bit to some of the Remembrance Day activities because I believe we're not meeting next week. So a couple of quick reminders. Communities in Bloom does meet on Tuesday at 4 p.m. We are welcoming 3 new members to that committee. And in addition to that, I did want to express a thank you. So we had Oatly Vigmund and about 20 or more different agencies and businesses from across the city come together to provide the 2nd annual Accessible Halloween Village. So that was hosted, of course, at their site in Ward 3. I was able to go and pay respects on behalf of the mayor and council and enjoy that space. So again, please let your constituents know about it. It's pretty amazing. Families were able to register in advance, and that supported kids who might not otherwise have an accessible or safe experience in the evening. Trick-or-treating could actually do that during the daytime in an outdoor accessible format. So really, really lovely to see community come together like that. I know it was a chilly day, but it was a great kind of start to seeing everyone in costume and incredible support by many local businesses. 2 announcements just with respects to Poppy Week and Remembrance Day coming up. We do need Poppy volunteers, so I know that there are still shifts to fill. If you have time, especially between now and Remembrance Day, so especially between now and November the 10th in advance, we do have shifts through Legion 147 to canvass. And thank you to all the businesses and agencies that are hosting Poppy donation boxes. This is very important revenue that actually goes to support some of our more vulnerable veterans. So thanks to all those that can participate in the Poppy campaign. Remembrance Day, as we all know, is on Monday, November the 11th. Just wanted to make sure the public knows that while there is that in-person parade and ceremony downtown at the Cenotaph at Meridian Place, beginning at 10:30, the Legion opens its doors at 10 a.m. on Remembrance Day. So if you're not able to be in person downtown, or if you would like to view it from indoors, you are welcome to the Legion in the club room downstairs to view the ceremony. The other piece I just wanted to share, which is, I think, a really lovely tribute to the start of Poppy Week, the work of staff with others involved, including Mr. Bill Sargent, RCCAFA 441 Huronia Wing. So we are looking at a Remembrance Week flag raising ceremony at City Hall on Monday, November the 4th. So this coming Monday at 11 a.m. So there is a special recognition happening after the flag raising. So there will be certificates from, of course, the mayor's office and RCAF presented to families being honored who are on the 25 banners. We have 16 female veterans and 9 male veterans who will be honored at the ceremony. And so that ceremony should take us from the flag raising at 11 a.m. until about noon in the rotunda here at City Hall on Monday. So do please join in that. And thanks to all those involved in that recognition with the banners. I think it's important for community to see that, and I know it's noticed by residents.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And that, again, is, we said we would take about a year and a half to recognize our veterans as we're moving towards November 11th this year, next year, and seeing all of those banners, it's really special. Are you attending the event on Monday for the mayor's office? Yeah, yeah. Thank you for doing that. You'll find it. Last year it was quite something seeing all these folks come in, and it's a pretty special event. Councillor Corser.
Just going to shout out to Redwood Park Communities. Me, Councillor Rietma, and Councillor Nixon got a sneak peek at Lillian Place, which is off of Lillian Crescent behind the Salvation Army Citadel. Saying that properly. There's going to be 12 fully furnished 2-bedroom apartments for families in crisis, and it looks like it's shaping up to be a beautiful space. They're getting the space ready to be opened, and they are looking for volunteers to assist in that. And to find out more, you go to redwoodparkcommunities.com and help to find some hope through housing and assist in bringing 12 families out of risk of homelessness into a supportive space.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Corser. I get a sneak peek tomorrow. I missed it yesterday, but I get to do it tomorrow. So don't tell me anything about it. Don't want you to wreck the sneak peek. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And on the Remembrance Day theme, I'm wearing a poppy today that was gifted to me by a Indigenous community member, and it's made of beads. And just wanted to make a comment and thank them obviously for the poppy, but also recognizing the significant contribution our Indigenous community made to our efforts in our military. So thank you to the Indigenous community for all you've done for our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. And I might actually repeat one that Councillor Kungle made, so forgive me if I do. So please join the Royal Canadian Legion. There's a vigil at Memorial Square on the 10th from the 7 p.m. Until midnight, and obviously the 11th from 6 a.m. to 9:30. 5 cadets will be in rotating shifts, standing in the vigil at the cenotaph, and just a reminder for the parade itself on the 11th down at Meridian Place and inside of that Memorial Square. That will be at 10 a.m. and the actual parade will be Dunlop and Mulcaster Streets, marching through to 5 Points intersection. 2 minutes of silence will be observed at 11 a.m., followed by a ceremony and the laying of the wreaths. The City of Barrie is updating its multi-year accessibility plan and age-friendly community plan and is seeking input from the public to help shape these updates. The community can participate by completing a seniors and accessibility survey. The survey deadline is Friday, November 1st, 2024. For further information, please visit buildingbarrie.ca. The City of Barrie Battery Collection Week starts on Monday, November 4th. Residents are asked to please place the battery bags beside their recycling boxes on your regular curbside collection day. The City of Barrie is seeking input from the public related to Barrie's new comprehensive zoning bylaw. The public meeting has been scheduled for the Affordability Committee meeting to be held on the 14th of November at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. Please note that this is the rescheduled public meeting from October 1st, which was canceled due to the unexpected power outage. There will be no councillor committee next week on November 6th. The Infrastructure Community Investment Committee and General Committee meetings will be held on the 13th of November instead. And just 2 items I wanted to highlight for members of committee from the last couple of days. Yesterday, I was able to give testimony to the Senate committee, or subcommittee rather, on veterans homelessness, which is something that we know is impacting many, many communities across the country. And Clearly, we've been speaking a lot tonight about how we honor those who've served, whether they're from previous wars and peacekeeping, served in the Navy, or perhaps in supportive roles right here across the country. I think it's important that it's noted the severity of that issue, and certainly it was good to see that the Senate's taking it seriously and that it's being talked about and brought forward. But obviously, it's bad that it has to be a light has to be shone on it in the first place. The second piece is on maybe a little more positive news. Today went down with Councillor Negussi to the fall economic update from the province. And there was one item that we had been asking for to be included inside of the budget, which is there, and it's in relation to our utility, Electra. And so it was positive to see that it was there, and I'll give you the explanation why. And certainly, I'm not going to go to the full policy, but we know that over the next 20 years, there's going to be essentially a tripling in the demand on our system, of which we are an owner of Electra. And we know that that means that there's going to be major investments needed on the infrastructure itself that we own in our distribution company. And so the government, for the first time today, gave a nod to not only do they need to create more power, but they need to find ways to get that power to people's houses, businesses, to charge their vehicles and whatnot. And so it was a very positive piece, at least a signal from the government that they're going to work with utilities, which are mainly owned by either the province of Ontario or municipal ownership. And I think it's something that hopefully paves the way for steady investment in our grid, but also secures our investment that we have in Electra. So I will leave the announcements there, and I believe we have circulation lists. Are there any items from the circulation list on October the 16th, 2024? How about October the 23rd, 2024? And October 30th, 2024? Well, that's that. Before adjournment, can't believe we made it through a whole meeting with nobody saying anything about Halloween tomorrow. We will, did you? Oh, no, I ate the chocolate already. Yeah. I assume that had nothing to do with Halloween. So we'll adjourn this meeting. And Carl, how long do you need before the city council meeting? We need about 5 minutes. So at 8:25, we'll begin the city council meeting.